Chapter 81. The Assault of Darkness. The serene morning over the land of light was shattered by distant roars. A thick, black mist rolled across the sky, blotting out the brilliant sun. Malgrath's demon army advanced toward the Temple of Light, bringing with it a suffocating air of death. Arians. Standing on the temple steps, Auren raised the eternal torch, its radiant light shining as the last bastion against the encroaching darkness. "They're coming!" This isn't just another battle, it's the decisive one. "Everyone, prepare yourselves!" Alondra clutched the ancient torch of light tightly, her eyes blazing with determination. No matter what happens, we cannot let the darkness breach this place. From the shadows, massive creatures emerged, each grotesque and brimming with destructive power. Their elongated limbs tore through trees and structures with ease. The temple's light fought back, but could only hold them at bay briefly. Malgrath stepped forward, his cold smile chilling the air. "This feeble light won't protect you for long. I will erase every trace of light from this world." Alondra raised the torch, unleashing a brilliant beam of light that repelled the first wave of demons. However, as larger demons appeared, her light dimmed, as though the creatures were absorbing its energy. Zephyra summoned a whirlwind to obstruct the demon army, but with a mere gesture, Malgrath dispersed it. "Do you think this wind trick will stop me?" he mocked, his golden eyes gleaming. "We're not strong enough to hold them back," Zephyra shouted, her wings trembling as she conjured another barrier of wind. Ignis charged forward, his flaming sword blazing. "I'll slow them down!" He carved a wall of fire to impede the advancing horde. Yet the shadow creatures passed through the flames, leaving trails of black smoke in their wake. Nyxara stood behind, her expression thoughtful. "I need to weaken Malgrath, keep him occupied as long as possible." Over them, she summoned a cloud of purple mist, enshrouding the smaller demons, and causing them to lose their way in their own shadows. In the heart of the temple, Solian focused intently on the eternal hourglass. He could feel time itself distorting under Malgrath's presence. The hourglass's runes glowed brightly, like a dire warning. "Time is turning against us," Solian said, his voice calm but tense. "If I don't stabilize it, they'll grow stronger with each passing moment." Alondra glanced at him, her face filled with worry. "But if you do that, you'll drain all your divine power." "There's no other choice," Solian replied firmly. He traced glowing sigils in the air, creating a circle of light to slow the darkness's advance. As the gods struggled to hold the line, Auren stepped forward, the torch in his hand flaring intensely. Closing his eyes, he channeled all his divine energy into his most powerful spell. Summon of Dawn. A colossal pillar of light erupted, illuminating the sky and the earth. The demon army was swept away by the brilliance, many disintegrating instantly, while others were driven back. The brief respite allowed the gods a moment to catch their breath. But the cost was great. Auren fell to his knees, sweat dripping from his brow. "I can't sustain it any longer," he murmured, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Zephyra and Ignis combined their powers to create a wall of fire and wind around the temple. Zephyra summoned another cyclone to push the smaller demons back, while Ignis's flames consumed anything that approached. "We have to hold this line!" Ignis roared, his flaming sword burning fiercely. "Don't let them through!" But Malgrath casually raised his hand, shattering the barrier with a wave of dark energy. "Here, Jace. You're merely delaying the inevitable," he said coldly. Overwhelmed by the relentless assault, the gods retreated to the temple's deepest chamber, where the artifact fragments were safeguarded. The underground room glowed with the light of crystalline stones, yet the encroaching darkness made the air heavy with dread. "This is our final stand," Alondra said, clutching the torch tightly. "If we lose these fragments, everything we fought for will be in vain." Despite his weariness, Auren stood tall, his eyes burning with resolve. "This battle isn't over. We must prepare. Our true fight lies ahead." The roars of the demon army echoed through the temple halls. From the shadows, Malgrath's icy voice boomed. "I will not stop until the last light is extinguished." The gods gripped their weapons tightly, their faces etched with determination. "No matter what, we won't let him destroy what we've sworn to protect," Auren declared, the torch in his hand blazing once more, a beacon of hope in the suffocating darkness. Chapter 82. The One-on-One Battles. As the army of darkness surged into the deepest level of the Temple of Light, the gods were forced to split up to confront the strongest demons. The roars of the demons echoed through the chambers, mingling with the sound of crumbling stone and the flickering glow of the artifact fragments. "We can't let them breach the barrier protecting the fragments," Auren said firmly. "Each of us will take on one demon. Fight with everything you have, for the sake of this world." The gods nodded, their eyes reflecting determination. Without hesitation they separated, each heading toward one of the advancing demons. Auren entered a smaller chamber where Voren, the harbinger of division, was waiting. Voren's towering figure loomed, his massive black wings spreading wide, and his cold eyes gleamed with malice. "Do you think your light can stop me, Auren?" Voren hissed, his voice low and menacing. "With a single word I could turn you all against one another." Auren raised the eternal torch, its brilliant light illuminating the room. "You cannot divide us. We fight for a shared purpose, and you will never destroy that." The battle began with a flurry of powerful attacks from both sides. Voren conjured illusions cloaked in darkness, forcing Auren to stay focused to discern reality. But the light from the torch dispelled the illusions, allowing Auren to close the gap between them, inching closer to victory. Ignis confronted Caelus, the demon of black fire, in a vast chamber surrounded by rivers of molten lava. Caelus, his body engulfed in black flames, laughed menacingly. "Do you think your flames can burn me, Ignis? I am the shadow of fire itself." Ignis remained silent, gripping his flaming sword tightly. He charged forward with a powerful slash, unleashing a fiery blaze at Caelus. The clash between their flames was explosive, with red and black fire merging and threatening to ignite the entire area. Caelus used molten lava to create violent explosions, but Ignis countered with precision, manipulating his fire to weaken Caelus's molten armor. "You'll never outmatch my light!" Ignis roared. Solara confronted Nidrith, the demon of natural decay, in a dying forest. Each of Nidrith's steps withered the plants, and the air grew stifling and toxic. "This forest will wither into nothingness, Solara," Nidrith mocked, his voice dripping with contempt. "You can't protect it." Solara closed her eyes, connecting with the remnants of nature's strength. "Nature never gives up," she replied, summoning vines from the earth to block Nirith's advance. The battle was fierce, as Nirith used darkness to destroy her creations. But Solara's resolve never wavered, and she gradually restored the forest's strength. Powerful vines entwined around Nebrith, weakening him and halting his destruction. While supporting her allies with the eternal torch, Alondra was ambushed by Malgrath. Emerging from the shadows, he wielded a massive black scythe. "Do you think this torch can protect you, Alondra?" Malgrath sneered, his voice echoing ominously. "I will make you taste despair." Alondra attempted to create a protective circle of light, but Malgrath's power was overwhelming. He unleashed a devastating strike aimed directly at her. Just as the attack was about to land, time suddenly froze. Solian appeared, the eternal hourglass in his hand glowing brightly. He used time magic to slow Malgrath's attack, giving Alondra the chance to escape. "You cannot destroy time, Malgrath," Solian declared, his voice commanding. "Time always aligns with the light." Furious, Malgrath launched a series of attacks, but Solian used his time manipulation to shield them both. "Hurry, Alondra! You must use the torch to aid the others," Solian urged. Nyxara faced Umbra, the demon of absolute darkness, in a brutal psychological battle. Umbra refrained from direct attacks, instead using illusions and whispers to shake Nyxara's resolve. "You don't belong to the light, Nyxara," Umbra whispered, his voice emanating from all directions. "You are darkness. Return to me." But Nyxara smirked, her violet eyes sharp. "I was tempted by the dark once, but I don't belong to it. I will use darkness itself to defeat you." She enveloped them both in a thick purple fog, limiting Umbra's vision. Overwit. Within the mist, she temporarily sealed his power, preventing him from continuing his assault. Thalios, wielding the strength of the seas, faced a massive army of shadow creatures. He summoned colossal waves with his trident, sweeping away hordes of the demons. "You will not pass through the ocean," Thalios bellowed, creating a vortex of water that encircled the temple, holding back the relentless attacks. After gaining a temporary advantage, the gods regrouped. They realized the demons were merely testing their strength, and the real battle had yet to begin. Auren, holding the eternal torch, gazed into the distance where Malgrath was preparing his next move. "We must be ready. This is far from over." From the shadows, Malgrath's cold laughter echoed. "Do you truly believe you can hold out much longer? I will rewrite the rules, and you will be powerless to stop me." The gods tightened their grips on their weapons, preparing for the next phase of the battle, prevail that would decide not only the fate of light, but also the world's hope. Chapter 83. The plan to rewrite the laws. Amid the suffocating darkness, Malgrath's sinister laughter echoed across the void. Standing at the center of his demonic army, his golden eyes glowed fiercely as he held one of the fragments of creation high in his hand. "You fought and sacrificed, but it was all for nothing," he sneered. "With this fragment, I will rewrite the very laws of the world. Light, darkness, time, all will bow to my will." The gods stood opposite him, their expressions tense. Auren, gripping the eternal torch, shouted, "You'll never succeed!" "We'll stop you, no matter the cost," Malgrath smirked. "Then try, but I guarantee your failure." While the others focused on Malgrath, Solian observed the fragment of creation in his grasp. He noticed a peculiar black aura emanating from it, unlike anything he had seen before. "This isn't pure power," Solian said, his tone heavy with thought. "The fragment has been corrupted by darkness. Its energy has been twisted, amplifying Malgrath's strength." Elandra turned to him, her eyes filled with concern. "If darkness has taken control of it, we must purify the fragment before he can use it." "We need time," Solian replied. "I can stabilize the fragment, but only if we can hold him off long enough." Standing beside Solian, Zephyra used her wind magic to sense the energy surrounding the fragment. Closing her eyes, she focused on the air currents around her. "I can create a vortex to weaken the darkness's grip on the fragment," she said, "but I'll need the other fragments to amplify my power." Auren nodded. "We'll help you. A fragment. But we have to act quickly before Malgrath makes his move." Turning to his companions, Auren spoke with determination. "We need a strategy. Nyxara and I will distract Malgrath, buying time for Solian and Zephyra to work." "Now," Nyxara smirked, her violet eyes glinting. "I'll use his own shadows against him, but make sure you stabilize that fragment quickly." Noticing their discussion, Malgrath laughed mockingly. "A foolish plan. You cannot defeat me." As Solian and Zephyra worked on stabilizing the corrupted fragment, Elandra felt an unusual energy radiating from the other fragments in their possession. Holding them up, she linked them together, and a brilliant light erupted. "These fragments aren't just individual sources of power," Elandra said. "They can unite to unleash something far greater. This is the only way to counter Malgrath." Thalios stepped forward, his deep voice steady. "Patient. If that's our best chance, then we must try." Before the gods could execute their plan, Malgrath struck. A wave of darkness surged toward them, forcing the group to scatter. "You cannot escape me!" Malgrath roared, charging straight for Elandra, who held the connected fragments. Auren swiftly blocked his path, the light from his torch flaring into a radiant barrier. You won't touch her." After temporarily pushing Malgrath back, the gods realized they couldn't hold their ground much longer. Auren, breathing heavily but resolute, said, "We can't keep fighting here. We must push deeper into his domain and end this once and for all." Solian nodded. "His stronghold is the only place where we can completely destroy the power of darkness." Nyxara smirked. "If this is our final journey, I'm ready." Holding the now unified fragments aloft, Elandra declared, "Let's finish this, for the light, for everyone." The gods clasped hands, stepping through the portal into Malgrath's stronghold. The air grew heavy, suffused with oppressive darkness. Every direction seemed shrouded in shadow, and the strength of their light began to wane. Solian glanced back at his companions, his voice calm yet firm. "Stay strong. This isn't just a battle for light, it's a battle for the future of the world." The group pressed forward, bracing themselves for the greatest challenge they had ever faced, deep within the heart of darkness. Chapter 84. The Journey into Darkness. The air grew thick and heavy as the gods stepped through the gateway into Malgrath's stronghold. The towering walls were made of an obsidian-like material, each stone pulsing faintly with a crimson glow, creating a sense of eerie vitality. Beneath their feet, the ground emitted faint groans, as if each step awakened a dormant entity. "The space here is warped," Solian observed, his sharp eyes scanning the surroundings. The eternal hourglass in his hands glowed faintly. "We're walking through an unstable timeline. Be cautious. Any mistake could trap us here forever." Auren pressed forward, the light from his torch blazing brighter. No matter what lies ahead, we can't turn back. This is our final hope." Shadow tendrils. As the group delved deeper, the ground began to shift. Shadowy tendrils shot up suddenly, wrapping around their legs. Yes. Ignis roared, his flaming sword igniting as he struck the tendrils. But the shadows absorbed the fire. "We need stronger light!" Alondra shouted, raising her torch. Brought it. Its radiant glow dispersed some of the tendrils. Zephyra summoned small whirlwinds to free her teammates, scattering the shadows momentarily. Memory illusions. Now at work. Nyxara froze in her tracks, her eyes clouding over. Before her appeared a vision of herself as a child, sobbing uncontrollably as darkness consumed her for the first time. "You'll never escape the shadows," a voice echoed in her mind. Nyxara staggered, nearly collapsing, until Auren stepped forward, the light from his torch illuminating her face. "Don't let it control you," he said calmly. "You are stronger than these memories." The first creature. A massive beast emerged from the ground, its body covered in shimmering black scales, its fiery red eyes burning with malevolence. It roared, sending shockwaves through the space. Ignis charged in, his flaming sword blazing. "I'll take it down!" he yelled. But his flames barely scratched the creature's scales. "We need coordination!" Zephyra shouted, flapping her wings to generate razor-sharp winds. "Go for its eyes!" Alondra focused the torch's light into a blade of energy, striking one of the creature's eyes. The beast roared in agony before collapsing under its immense weight. The second creature. Deeper within, a colossal serpent coiled through the hallway, its body stretching endlessly. It exhaled a toxic mist, choking the air. "I'll handle this," Solara declared, summoning vines from outside. The tendrils wrapped around the serpent, but it thrashed violently, pulling Solara down. Thalios intervened, wielding his trident to summon a wave of seawater that engulfed the serpent, washing it away. Further along, the group encountered a wall etched with ancient symbols, each glowing faintly with unique colors. Touching the wrong symbol unleashed waves of shadow energy. Solian stepped forward, closing his eyes as the eternal hourglass turned slowly in his hands. "I can rewind to find the correct symbol, but I'll need light to reveal the final one." Alondra advanced, the torch's light illuminating the last symbol, revealing the safe path forward. "We've done it!" Nyxara exclaimed, though her tone remained wary. "But be careful. This is only the beginning." As the journey grew more perilous, the gods faced not only external threats, but also their inner fears. A minor conflict erupted when Ignis, in his eagerness to attack, nearly triggered a hidden trap. "You can't just charge blindly," Zephyra shouted, her voice filled with frustration. "We need coordination, not recklessness," Ignis retorted, his flaming sword blazing fiercely. "Do you think I don't know that?" "I'm trying to protect us." Solian intervened, his voice firm. "Enough! The darkness is trying to divide us. Don't let it succeed." Quote. At the chapter's climax, the group stood before a massive glowing crimson gate, guarded by two enormous stone statues. One represented fire, its black flames crackling ominously, while the other embodied water, exuding an icy, chilling aura. "This is the final trial," Solian said, his gaze steely. "We must overcome it, or everything ends here." The gate rumbled loudly, and the stone statues awakened, their eyes glowing intensely. The gods braced themselves, their powers of light and shadow intertwining as they prepared for the final battle before confronting Malgrath. Chapter 85. The Collapse of the Barrier. As the gods passed through the gate, a deafening roar shook the entire space. Malgrath, hovering above, raised his hand, conjuring a massive orb of darkness spinning with destructive power. "You will all fall!" Malgrath bellowed, hurling the orb toward the Temple of Light. The orb collided with the barrier, unleashing a shockwave that shattered several protective layers. Solara sensed the destruction spreading. Closing her eyes, she summoned the breath of the forest, causing small forests to rise from the earth to absorb some of the dark energy. However, her divine energy quickly drained, and she collapsed to her knees. "No, I can't stop now," Solara whispered, struggling to rise, though her body trembled with exhaustion. Ignis and Zephyra combined their powers, forming a barrier of fire and wind to shield the temple from further attacks. Ignis's flames blazed fiercely, merging with the whirlwinds conjured by Zephyra's wings to create a glowing, radiant shield. "Hold the line! I'll keep this barrier up!" Ignis shouted, his hands shaking under the immense pressure of the darkness. But the protective wall could only hold for so long. Malgrath roared and unleashed another, stronger attack, breaking through the shield. Zephyra gasped for air, sweat streaming down her face. "We need more time! Elandra, you must do something!" Elandra raised the fragment of light, channeling all its power to rebuild a temporary barrier. The light from the fragment spread outward, encasing the temple in a fragile shield. "This isn't enough," Elandra murmured, feeling the limits of her strength. "I need the power of all the fragments." Seeing the fading light, Auren stepped forward and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone, Elandra. We'll fight with you." Meanwhile, Solien stood at the temple's center, the eternal hourglass in his hand glowing brightly. He knew the timeline was being warped, and without stabilizing it, all their efforts would be in vain. "I must stabilize the flow of time, but it may cost me everything," he said, his voice calm but resolute. Drawing symbols in the air, Solien rewound the moments where the timeline had fractured. With each use of his power, he felt his energy draining rapidly. "Auren, I don't know how much longer I can hold this," Solien admitted, his breaths labored. Sensing the god's weakening state, Malgrath intensified his assault. He summoned colossal shadow creatures, each radiating destructive energy. These monstrosities charged toward the temple, aiming for the barrier's weak points. Thalios stepped forward, his trident glowing as he unleashed a powerful tidal wave that swept away part of the shadow army. However, even he realized that the sea's power could not sustain them indefinitely. "We're running out of time!" Thalios yelled, his eyes filled with urgency. Despite her exhaustion, Solara resolved to use the last of her divine energy in a final effort. Summoning all her strength, she unleashed Breath of the Forest, creating a storm of trees and vines that slowed the Shadow Army's advance. But the attack drained her completely. As the last of her strength left her, Solara collapsed, unconscious. Ignis rushed to her side, catching her as she fell. His voice broke with emotion. "You can't give up, Solara. We still need you." The gods regrouped inside the temple, watching as Malgrath's power grew even stronger. Elandra, her gaze resolute, spoke with determination. "We can't hold him off any longer. If we don't end this now, everything will be lost." Solien nodded, his voice steady but somber. "He's channeling all his power to destroy the barrier. This is our final chance to strike." Auren raised the eternal torch high, its light flaring brilliantly. "Then we attack. This is the moment to finish it all." Despite their exhaustion, the gods rallied their strength and resolve. They knew the upcoming battle would not only test their physical abilities, but also their mental fortitude. From the shadows, Malgrath's cold laughter echoed. "Do you really think you can last any longer? I will rewrite the rules of this world, and you'll be powerless to stop me." The gods clasped their hands tightly, uniting their light and willpower as they marched toward the stronghold's heart. There, Malgrath awaited, wielding the full force of his ultimate power. Chapter 86. The Battle of Wits. The central chamber of the fortress was shrouded in a dense mist. The faint light of torches along the walls barely illuminated Malgrath, who stood atop a high platform. His golden eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as his voice, both a whisper and a command, seeped into the gods' minds. "Aren't you tired yet? The doubts, the fears, the failures, they are all you're doing." A golden beam shot from his eyes, fracturing into countless illusions that blanketed the room. Within these illusions, each god saw painful memories and mistakes they had tried to bury. Auren saw himself before a dying torch, surrounded by endless darkness. The cries for help echoed around him, making him doubt his ability to lead his team. Nyxara faced an image of herself engulfed by eternal shadows, a world devoid of light, where she was the one who had failed. Thalios saw his seas turned crimson, monstrous waves swallowing everything he held dear, powerless to save his homeland. "You don't trust each other," Malgrath sneered. "Light or dark, it doesn't matter. Your fear will destroy you all." Auren tightened his grip on the eternal torch. Looking into his own illusion, he understood that these were mere phantoms of the past. A radiant light erupted from within him, dispelling the surrounding darkness. "I will not be subdued by shadows or fear. Light always guides the way, and we will not falter." His words ignited a flame of resolve among his allies. Nyxara wielded her shadow magic to block the illusions, shielding her mind. Thalios summoned small waves to wash away the false memories. One by one, the gods regained their will to fight. In the distance, Nyxara sensed the overwhelming presence of Umbra, a being of pure darkness. She approached, her pale, violet eyes shining brightly. "Umbra, A towering shadow with cold, white eyes stared back at her. "Nyxara, you're but a fragment of shadow." "I am eternal darkness," Umbra whispered, his voice creeping into her thoughts. But Nyxara remained unmoved. She unleashed her spell, Lullaby of Illusions, transforming the space into a world of shimmering twilight. Umbra began to slow, his white eyes fading. "Dream, Umbra. This is where you'll sleep forever," Nyxara said coldly. Her magic created an immense seal, encasing Umbra in a perpetual dream. He howled, thrashing against the seal. But the violet light held firm, trapping him in an eternal slumber. Meanwhile, at the chamber's entrance, Thalios and Solara confronted a towering shadow beast. Its massive frame roared, sending shockwaves that shook the entire fortress. "Solara, back me up!" Thalios shouted, his trident glowing brightly. Solara nodded, summoning enormous vines from the ground to entangle the beast's legs. Thalios surged forward, conjuring a tidal wave that slammed into the creature. Yet it stood its ground, and in a split second, the beast lashed out, nearly striking Solara, but Thalios shielded her just in time. "I'll finish this," Thalios growled. He unleashed his ultimate move, Wrath of the Seas, conjuring a massive whirlpool that engulfed the beast. Slowly, the darkness dissolved, leaving silence before the central door. As the group entered the central chamber, Elandra paused, sensing a powerful energy emanating from within. A massive stone pedestal stood at the center, where light and darkness swirled like opposing streams. "This is where the final relic fragment resides," Elandra whispered. She reached out, but a chilling wind blew through, making her shiver. "Malgrath has been waiting for us," Auren said, his light illuminating the room. "Prepare yourselves. This is only the beginning." As they prepared to move forward, a shadowy figure emerged in the dim room. The familiar golden eyes of Malgrath glowed menacingly, but this time, he was not alone. "Welcome, gods," Malgrath sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. "I've been waiting for you." With a wave of his hand, he conjured dozens of clones, each radiating immense power. The gods braced themselves as the battle erupted with explosive energy. And Malgrath cast his spell, Golden Trap, summoning illusions of vast treasure to distract Elandra. She quickly saw through the ruse and dispelled it with her magic. Each god faced off against Malgrath's powerful clones. Ignis unleashed waves of fire, but the clones continually regenerated. Zephyra summoned powerful tornadoes, yet the darkness pressed on. As seconds turned into minutes, the gods grew weary. "We can't keep this up," Zephyra cried. "Here. He's toying with us." But Auren remained resolute. Staring at Malgrath, the eternal torch in his hand burned brighter than ever. Finally, Malgrath revealed his true form, a colossal figure composed of intertwining light and shadow. He unleashed his most devastating attack, shaking the entire room to its core. In that moment, Elandra discovered how to activate the relic fragment. Stepping toward the pedestal, she began the ritual despite the relentless assault of darkness. "Auren, protect me!" Elandra shouted. Auren charged forward, wielding the light of dawn to shield her from Malgrath's attacks. Chapter 87. The Ultimate Form. The heart of the stronghold was engulfed in a colossal surge of energy as Malgrath's form began to shift. Golden streaks of light intertwined with thick darkness, creating a towering entity that nearly touched the cavern's ceiling. His golden eyes blazed like twin suns, reflecting temptation and despair. "You think you understand me?" Malgrath's deep, resonant voice shook the room. "Works wit. Witness my ultimate power, the union of all darkness and ambition." Malgrath's new form was not just shadow but a strange reflection of light, distorting everything around it. Each of his steps unleashed shockwaves that shattered the ground and pillars alike. Auren stepped forward, raising the eternal torch, its light blazing defiantly. "No matter how powerful you are, light will always prevail." Auren unleashed the Summon of Dawn, a radiant burst of light that swept across the chamber like a sunrise, dispelling the surrounding shadows. But Malgrath only chuckled. With a wave of his hand, he conjured a reflective shield that absorbed the attack entirely. "Your light is merely a fraction of my power," Malgrath roared, hurling a blast of counter-energy that forced Auren back. Staggering but undeterred, Auren stood firm, his gaze resolute. "I will not let you win! This group is the world's final hope!" Amidst the chaos, Elandra moved swiftly to the stone pedestal, where the artifact fragment flickered weakly. She began reciting ancient incantations, her trembling hands betraying her resolve. Slowly, threads of light began connecting from the fragment. Malgrath noticed her efforts. He thrust a massive wave of dark energy toward her. "You think a mortal can stand in my way?" Auren dashed forward, shielding Alondra with the last of his light. The flight. The force of Malgrath's attack sent both of them sprawling. The ritual was disrupted, and the artifact fragment's light began to fade. Seeing the dire situation, Solian raised the eternal hourglass high. Time within the chamber came to a halt, freezing Malgrath's attacks mid-air and giving the gods a moment to recover. "I can only hold this for a moment," Solian said, his voice steady but strained. "Make the most of it." Channeling his remaining divine power, Solian accelerated time for the artifact fragment, restoring it to its original state. The strain left him on the verge of collapse. "Finish this while I still can." As time resumed, Malgrath launched another wave of relentless attacks. Nyxara stepped forward, her violet eyes gleaming. "Zephyra, we need to combine our powers." Zephyra nodded, her delicate wings beating fiercely as she summoned a massive whirlwind. Simultaneously, Nyxara infused it with her shadows, creating a chaotic storm that engulfed Malgrath. Malgrath roared, trapped within the storm. His shadowy tendrils thrashed wildly, but were shredded by the cutting winds. Momentarily disoriented, he provided the gods a crucial opening to advance. While Malgrath struggled within the storm, Auren turned to his comrades. "His power is too great. We cannot destroy him, we can only seal him." Nyxara, despite her exhaustion, stood tall. "Sealing him will require a sacrifice, our divine strength, and perhaps even our lives." Thalios stepped forward, his trident glowing faintly. "If that's the only way, I am ready." One by one the gods nodded, their eyes filled with unwavering determination. "For this world we cannot falter," Auren declared. Breaking free from the storm, Malgrath's form shone brighter than ever, his golden and shadowy aura radiating with terrifying intensity. You will never defeat me," he bellowed, unleashing one final devastating attack, a colossal wave of dark energy aimed directly at the gods. Auren raised the eternal torch high, summoning the strongest light he could muster. The clash of light and shadow sent shockwaves through the chamber, causing the very walls and ceiling to crumble. Amid the chaos, Alondra completed the ritual. From the artifact fragment, a blinding silver light erupted, consuming the entire room. Malgrath screamed as the light began to tear his form apart. "No! I will not be sealed again." As the light subsided, the gods collapsed to the ground, their divine strength nearly depleted. But Malgrath's form was gone, his darkness sealed away. The chamber fell silent, peace returning to the stronghold. Auren looked around at his weary comrades, his voice low yet resolute. "We have won, but the cost was immense." In the distance, Ignis's torch flared one final time, signaling the end of this battle, even as the gods knew another challenge awaited in the uncertain future. Chapter 88. The Eternal Flame. After Malgrath was temporarily sealed, the gods gathered at the center of the dark stronghold. Ignis, the god of fire, stood silently before the eternal torch. He knew the temporary seal wouldn't hold Malgrath for long. Before anyone could react, Ignis spoke in his deep, resolute voice. "We cannot afford to repeat past mistakes this time. I will destroy his defenses entirely to give you a chance to end this for good." All eyes turned to him. Zephyra stepped forward, her expression filled with worry. "What are you saying? Don't tell me." Ignis turned to her, his unwavering smile offering both reassurance and resolve. "Firestorm, but to perform it, I'll need all my divine energy, which means I won't be able to return." No one spoke further. The room was filled with a painful silence. Finally, Auren stepped forward, placing a hand on Ignis's shoulder. "I respect your decision. The light you leave behind will never fade." Ignis moved to the center of the stronghold, where remnants of darkness lingered after the battle. Zephyra followed closely behind. "You don't have to do this alone." "Zephyra, let me go on my own," Ignis said, but she shook her head. "If this is farewell, at least let me stand beside you." The flames around Ignis flared brightly as he summoned all his strength. Streams of crimson fire surged from his body, Merging with the wind, Zephyra summoned, creating a massive firestorm. The fiery tornado exploded, obliterating all remaining darkness and piercing Malgrath's final defenses. "I never imagined fire and wind could blend like this," Ignis said, his eyes glowing with pride. Zephyra said nothing, only holding his hand one last time. As the defenses shattered, a deafening roar echoed from deep within the stronghold. Caelus, the demon of black fire, emerged in a towering form, his body ablaze with deadly flames. "You will never seal Malgrath as long as I exist," Caelus roared, unleashing waves of black fire at the gods. Auren and Thalios charged to intercept the attack, but Caelus's power was overwhelming. At that moment, Elandra stepped forward, her body radiating brilliant light. She cast a protective spell, forming a shield to protect the group. "I won't let him harm you!" Elandra shouted, her newfound strength glowing so brightly that even Caelus was forced to retreat. Amid the chaos, Solara moved quietly among her allies, using her nature magic to heal their wounds. She summoned the breath of the forest, releasing a soothing mist that enveloped the gods. "Thalios, don't fall! The sea needs you," she urged, her hands glowing as she healed his injuries. However, Solara's own energy was waning. Her once vibrant green hair began to fade, but her determination remained steadfast. "As long as nature endures, I will keep fighting." While the gods fought to hold back Caelus, Malgrath began to break free from the temporary seal. His furious roar filled the chamber as his golden eyes blazed. He unleashed a massive destructive wave, shaking the ground and collapsing the walls. "We don't have much time," Auren shouted, struggling to defend against the onslaught. Despite his exhaustion, Ignis channeled the last of his strength into the eternal flame. "Use this chance! Seal him now!" The gods realized this was their moment. Solian stood, his energy nearly depleted, and declared, "I will lead the sealing ritual, but I'll need all of you to work together now." Nyxara and Elandra stood opposite each other, their powers of light and darkness intertwining to form a massive energy circle. Auren and Zephyra defended them, while Solara and Thalios stabilized the natural and oceanic energies to strengthen the spell. The light from the sealing ritual engulfed the entire stronghold. Malgrath thrashed against its power, but the combined strength of the gods was overwhelming. In a final, desperate moment, he screamed as the light consumed him, and the last remnants of darkness vanished. As the light faded, the gods collapsed to the ground, drained. Ignis was gone, his body having dissolved into the flames. A small, glowing ember floated in the air, a final farewell. Zephyra stood motionless, tears streaming down her face. "You kept your promise. Your fire will never be extinguished." Auren looked to the sky as the light returned. "We've won, but the cost was too great." In the distance, the faint glow of Ignis's torch continued to burn, a reminder of the sacrifices made to protect the world. As the stronghold stabilized, Solian approached, his weary eyes filled with determination. "It's not over yet. To completely seal Malgrath, we must finish the final ritual." The gods nodded, their light shining brighter than ever as they prepared for the ultimate battle to ensure peace for the world. Chapter 89. The Sealing Spell. After much deliberation, the gods decided to perform the sealing ritual at the central temple, once the source of divine power before it was overtaken by darkness. Solian, holding the eternal hourglass, stood in the center of a circle of light. His expression was weary but resolute. "We must combine all our strength," he declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Only absolute unity can create an eternal seal." Elandra and Nyxara positioned themselves at opposite points, representing light and darkness, ready to activate the final phase of the ritual. Auren led the charge, gripping the eternal torch tightly, while Solara began summoning energy from nature to shield the group. Solian began chanting ancient incantations, his words resonating like bells from the past. The hourglass in his hands glowed intensely, with each falling grain of sand sending ripples of temporal energy across the area. "Time is both our ally and our foe," Solian intoned, his voice steady and commanding. "We must trap Malgrath within its endless flow." As the ritual progressed, light emanating from the hourglass expanded outward, forming a massive sealing circle that enveloped the entire dark fortress. As the sealing circle neared completion, Malgrath, though weakened, refused to submit. He roared, his body blazing with a mix of golden light and swirling darkness. "Do you think you can imprison me?" Malgrath bellowed, unleashing destructive energy blasts at the gods. Auren charged forward, wielding the light of dawn to block the onslaught. The collision of their powers sent shockwaves through the central temple. "Auren, you must hold him back!" Solian shouted, his eyes filled with urgency. While Auren battled Malgrath, Solara stood at the outer circle, using her connection to nature to shield the group. She summoned an eternal forest, with colossal vines rising from the ground to intercept the dark attacks. "Nature will not let darkness destroy us," she whispered, her hands glowing with green light. However, Solara's strength began to fade, sweat dripped from her brow, and her vibrant green hair dulled to a pale hue. Yet she stood firm. "Just a little more time, and we'll finish this," she murmured. Nyxara and Alondra exchanged determined glances before combining their powers of light and darkness to create a harmonious energy. "I never thought light and darkness could coexist," Nyxara said, her voice low but steady. Alondra smiled, her eyes gleaming. "We're not so different. Just two sides of the same coin." From their combined powers, a silvery stream of energy flowed into the center of the sealing circle. Malgrath howled as he felt the power binding him. As the sealing circle reached its final stage, Malgrath unleashed one last attack. A cataclysmic storm of destructive energy aimed at the gods. Ignis and Zephyra stepped forward, uniting their powers of fire and wind to form a protective barrier around the group. "My flames will shield us," Ignis declared, his eyes blazing. Zephyra nodded, her translucent wings glowing softly. "Together, we'll endure this." The storm was repelled, and the sealing circle erupted with brilliance, imprisoning Malgrath in an infinite flow of time. His roars echoed through the chamber as his form disintegrated into nothingness, leaving behind an eerie silence. As the sealing circle's light spread across the land, it eradicated the last remnants of darkness. Solian collapsed to his knees, the eternal hourglass in his hands shattering into countless shards. "We've succeeded, but at a great cost," Solian murmured and approached. His gaze filled with gratitude as he looked at his companions. "Ignis's fire, Zephyra's wind, and all of us. We've achieved the impossible." In the distance, the first light of dawn broke through the horizon, marking the beginning of a new era for the world. Welcome to Fantasy Realms. Enjoy the story, and thank you for your support. Chapter 90. The gods walked slowly along the path leading back to the Temple of Light. Around them, the rays of dawn illuminated their wounds, tenderly brushing over their unhealed scars. This path, once a symbol of pride, now stood as a reminder of a hard-fought war. Auren paused on the hill overlooking the temple, raising the eternal torch. Its radiant light blazed in his hand. "We've won, but was the price too great?" he said, his voice echoing in the still air. Standing beside him, Solara, her face pale, gently touched a newly bloomed flower. "Victory was necessary, but recovery will take years. I only hope nature does not turn its back on me," she whispered. As the gods entered the temple, Alondra stopped before an ancient statue of the light deity. Her eyes widened with awe and fear as she felt the immense power emanating from the ancient torch of light. Auren approached, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Alondra," he said with authority, "you have proven yourself worthy of this torch. It is not just a weapon but a beacon of hope." Alondra hesitated, her hand hovering over the torch. "But I am not a god. I am just a mortal who survived by chance. How can I bring light to this world?" Auren smiled warmly, hearing, "It is your humility and faith that make you extraordinary. Not power, but your heart is why the torch has chosen you." As Alondra grasped the torch, light radiated from her, filling the grand hall. Every step she took reignited the torches along the corridors, and the temple's walls were restored to their former splendor. In a small garden within the temple, Solara sat on the ground, her hands pressed against the soil. A gentle green light flowed from her palms, nurturing new growth. However, her strength visibly waned with every passing moment. Thalios approached, his eyes filled with concern. "You're hurting yourself," he said hoarsely. Solara smiled faintly, her voice soft as the wind. "Nature is a part of me. If I don't heal it, who will?" Kneeling beside her, Thalios met her gaze. "You don't have to carry this alone. We're a team. Let me help you." Together, they channeled their divine energy into the soil. From the earth, a massive tree sprouted, its branches casting a protective shadow over the garden. Solara leaned against its trunk, her breath shallow but her expression content. In the temple square, 2 grand statues were erected in memory of Zephyra and Ignis. One depicted Ignis, his body wrapped in flames, wielding an eternal flaming sword with defiant eyes that dared any foe. The other portrayed Zephyra, with wings spread wide, her form embodying freedom and serenity like the breeze. Standing before Zephyra's statue, Nyxara's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "You taught me that freedom isn't just about soaring through the skies but living for others." "I will never forget that." Auren approached Ignis's statue, placing a hand on the flame-forged sword at its base. "You burned brighter than any flame, Ignis. I promise to keep this light alive forever." Solian entered the temple's grand hall, where light from the ancient torch filled every corner. Placing the shattered eternal hourglass on a stone altar, his expression reflected both exhaustion and fulfillment. "We've done well, but this is not the end," he said. "Peace can only be maintained if everyone believes in the light within their hearts." Turning to the gods, especially Auren and Elandra, he continued, "I cannot accompany you forever, but my memory will live on in the flow of time, and ensure that this light never fades." The next morning, as dawn bathed the land in golden light, the gods stood atop a hill, overlooking the world they had saved. Verdant fields stretched to the horizon, rivers sparkled as they rushed by, and birds sang joyfully in the clear sky. Elandra raised the ancient torch high, her eyes filled with determination. "This is not just our victory, it's a chance for everyone. The darkness will no longer rule this world." The gods nodded, each silently vowing to protect the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. They knew that, while the darkness had been vanquished, their journey was far from over.